time of your life.
I don't know about you, but being a Lord of the Rings fan these days is like watching that moment in Friends when Ross buys that fancy red new car and it gets stuck in a parking space. The car is unreal and it's just stuck. It's wasted and it ain't going anywhere. A wee bit like a new Lord of the Rings game. Thankfully, we get a bit of news today, so there may be a chance of someone moving the car to let Ross out. Before we get in there, guys, my name is James on a Hill. Hit sub if you want more content on games and books. On September 29th, 2025, Insider Gaming released an article, and I'm going to just talk about it. A brand new Lord of the Rings game is in development and has been for some time. The deal has been in the works since last year, and while not signed yet due to a number of moving parts, is said to be made official soon and could happen as early as next week. Regarding current funding of the game's development, it had been funded internally. As far as what the game will be, sources didn't want to say too much. What was said, however, is that it will be a third-person action game that is designed in a way to compete with Hogwarts Legacy. Now, before I read any further, that is one thing I really wanted to see for a Lord of the Rings game. I think Hogwarts Legacy just done it in the best way possible. They took the lore, they took the story, they took everything that made Harry Potter great and made a game version of it. And that's what I want to see with Lord of the Rings. But anyway, we read on. It is said that multiple parties are involved with the game, including Embracer, Revenge, and other studios. Embracer has had the rights to Lord of the Rings IP for video games since 2022 when it paid nearly 400 million. It has since licensed out those rights to other companies to produce titles including Lord of the Rings Gollum. We'll just move on from that. That's pretty much it. So that is the news that we know so far in terms of a new Lord of the Rings game. That is all we've been given. So I think this is great news. I think that a new Lord of the Rings game is needed. Um, I believe that the Lord of the Rings games have been pretty executed over the years. And in my opinion, I think the only Lord of the Rings game worth talking about is the actual EA Lord of the Rings ones that came out when the films came out. Um, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm such a fan of the films, but I think anything past that or anything that has been released especially quite recently, like the Gollum game and the Tales of the Shire, I think they just haven't been executed well at all. And I think it's about time that we get that new Lord of the Rings game for the Lord of the Rings fans. So what would make it execute well? I think Lord of the Rings is such a fantastic sort of canvas to be able to build a game on top of. Most of the work's already done. Most of the heavy lifting's already been done. We've got characters, systems, races. We've got it all sort of like laid out there, and it's just about sort of respecting the work and the world and running with it instead of trying to change too much. An example of this is like Shelob turning into a supermodel in the Shadow of War, whatever you call that game. Um, no, 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 no. I don't know. Some of you might have liked that. I just was like, what? What does this even mean? Um, and it just takes you away from the lore accuracy and the canon. And I just no. I think we should focus on what makes Lord of the Rings great. Middle Earth is such a fantastic world, you know, and there's so much to be explored in. And this sort of takes me into the story aspect of it. Um, and I know there's a grey area with rights where maybe game developers don't own the rights to it all. I honestly don't know what way that would work out, but I think there's so much that we could build a story around. Rohirrim, you know, you could be a character from Rohan in the Third Age. You know, you could go, I don't know, you could maybe start off as a hobbit and come from the Shire and maybe you have to do a Frodo type journey or a Bilbo type journey and travel. Um, I don't know. There's so much that could be explored there. I think would be fantastic. And if you had the RPG elements to it as well, and you were properly role playing into the game, you know, you pick and choose where you come from in terms of the game. Do you start off in the Shire? Do you start off um, in Skiliath? Do you start off Gondor? Rohan doesn't really, you know. I just think it would be there's so much that could be done. The systems in terms of like if we take for example The Witcher and the systems that it has in play, you pick up plants and then you create a potion like Swallow or Thunderbolt or um, and you sort of you're using lower accuracy to create a game system, and I think with Lord of the Rings, if you did that, it would be really really good. Like the use of systems, I think would be a really good. Like there's a lot you could play with Lord of the Rings, with different weapons, elvish weapons versus orc weapons. There's a lot of what maybe you want to go for an orc build, I don't know, or a hobbit build, and maybe you have strengths and weaknesses based on whatever you've chosen. So if you pick a hobbit, your sneak is 100. If you go for orc, maybe your aggression is amplified. Um, Maybe if you go for a man from Rohan or a woman from Rohan, maybe you've got your horse riding skill is better. I don't know. I'm just sort of ballpark figuring it here. Um, but I think there's a lot that could be implemented. Maybe health. If you need health, Limbus Braid like would not be just great. Would not be just class to be able to pop a Limbus Braid whenever you're low on health. What if gear and upgrades? You could have to travel Middle Earth, go to the far corners of Middle Earth just to get a bit of armor upgrade. I don't know. There's a lot to be. There's a lot that could be done in this world. You could bring in the lore and the history from the previous ages if the rights allowed it. What if you found old weapons from the Battle of Unnumbered Heroes, for example, from the Second Age, or what if you found letters concerning old characters like the sons of Fëanor, or I don't know, something pretty cool. There's a lot that could be done, and I think what the Lord of the Rings game is, they really could hit home here for the fans. Maybe think of Skyrim, for example. Skyrim is so rich with lore. Like you could play that game for hundreds of hours and you'd still be finding stuff. And I think that's what I want to sort of see in this game. I want to see that like richness to it. Red Dead Redemption, even the maybe I don't know, like not so much the realistic gameplay type, but um, you could definitely implement some of it into this world. Say your character, you need to eat, drink, sleep to be able to sort of carry on throughout Middle Earth. Like there's a lot of that in the books. Like the books, it explains that they sit down for a meal like every second, third page, and they sleep and stuff like that. It would be really cool to implement that. But yeah, that's pretty much all that is in my head when I read the news today. It is something that was in the back of my head before this news came out. I would love to see it. Um, but yeah, let me know what you would like to see in this game. Would you like to see it more play like we like Skyrim? Would you like a more linear style gameplay? I don't know. Let me know what you think. Cheers, guys.